It's just after midnight, the Appalachian Mountains shrouded in a suffocating blanket of fog. Out here, the only company is the endless drone of diesel engines and the static hiss of ACB radio crackling in the dark. But beneath the surface of these winding roads and ancient ridgelines lurk stories truckers share only in whisper stories of vanished rigs, ghostly hitchhikers in reflective vests, and voices on the radio that know your name. Tonight, you're not just a passenger, you're along for the ride through 10 chilling tales, all drawn from the darkest corners of America's forgotten highways. Will you brave the journey to the end, or will something out there be waiting in your rearview mirror? Story number 1. The Laughing Man at mile 111. It's a cold autumn night. Dale, a trucker with 22 years of road behind him, checks his dashboard clock to 13 a.m., the mountains of West Virginia wrapped in a dense November fog. The radio is on low, tuned to channel 19, which should be alive, with the chatter of fellow drivers hustling freight up and down Route 33. Tonight, though, there's nothing, just static and the thrum of his engine. Dale lights a cigarette, squinting into the gloom. He passes mile marker 109.2 to go before he can pull off at a rest stop. He's been on this stretch more times than he can count, but tonight, something feels wrong. The pine forests press closer to the edge of the road, and the fog glows yellow from his high beams. He flicks the radio dial, searching for voices to ground him. Then among the static it comes, faint, distant, unmistakable, a laugh, low at first, then building, echoing as though someone's hiding just outside the cab. Dale's skin prickles. He turns the volume up. "Anyone out here tonight? Y'all hearing this?" he says into the mic, forcing bravado he doesn't feel, only silence. Then the laugh returns, higher, desperate, almost pleading. It doesn't crackle like a signal from another state, it sounds close. Too close. The rig passes mile 111. The laughter swells, filling the cab louder than it should be possible even. On max volume, Dale's hands tighten on the wheel. The road seems to contract, double stripes bending into the whiteout. He sees shapes flicker between the pines. Too tall, slouching, gone again just as quickly. "Cut it out," he mutters, jabbing the radio off. The laughter doesn't stop it. Sounds like it's coming from the sleeper behind him. His breath grows erratic. He checks his mirrors. Through fogged glass, a shape runs along the ditch, a bent figure, arms dangling too long, mouth stretched, in an impossible grin. Dale floors it, but the laughter matches his speed, weaving through the rumble of the semi. His phone screen on the dash flickers, no signal. The same static-laced giggle leaks through his Bluetooth, his speakers even. The engines knock. For a moment, every electronic device in the cab is spitting out the same warped laughter. The truck plunges into a hairpin turn. For a second, the laughter halts. Then a voice hisses, "Dale, I know you. Come see me." It's his own voice, but wrong, drawn out, distorted, never blinking. Dale gasps. He jams on the brakes and swerves into the gravel shoulder. The rig shudders to a halt, the headlights illuminating nothing but mist. He scrambles from the cab, the cold biting his cheeks. Everything is silent. He walks the length of his truck, flashlight beam jittering. No sign of anyone, no footprints in the frost, no breath in the darkness. Suddenly, the radio inside the cab crackles to life. Full volume. "Law with us, Dale. Just one more mile. One more mile." The laughter now comes from all sides. He jumps back in, peels, out with tires spinning, fleeing down the mountain. Hours later, safe at a neon-lit truck stop, he finds a single line traced through grit on his back window. "Mile 111. Still waiting for your smile." Dale doesn't drive that stretch at night. Anymore? Sometimes, when rain hisses on the windshield, he'll hear it again. That slow, choking laugh, like it's just outside, waiting for someone else with nowhere to run. If you want the story broken into scenes, with visual descriptions, or as a voiced script, let me know, and I'll format it accordingly. Story number 2. The Frozen Woman and Fire. It was supposed to be a routine haul. Travis's trailer was loaded with produce, destined for Asheville. And as he maneuvered the steep switchbacks near Spruce Pine, the first flurries of snow started falling. Visibility dropped fast, the world. Outside, his headlights fading into indistinct shapes. He checked the clock, 3:44 a.m. The mountains seemed like a ghost town. No taillights ahead, no oncoming beams. Just the rhythmic slap of windshield wipers and the deep hum of his engine. He was halfway through an isolated stretch when the sharp, urgent sound of sirens cut through the CB static. Accident ahead, known cause. Route 226, the dispatcher's voice crackled, followed by coordinates that matched his current location. Moments later, Travis saw what looked like a bonfire up ahead. A hellish glow twisting through the fog as he slowed. The heat hit him, a wall of it, unnatural for the icy night. A car was engulfed in flames on the embankment, but what made Travis blood run cold was the figure standing beside it. Amid the fire and swirling smoke stood a woman, her eyes wide and glassy, hair streaming wild in the updraft. Her dress was untouched by the flames. She seemed frozen in place, utterly motionless, her skin pale as the snow swirling around her. Travis grabbed his fire extinguisher and bolted from the cab. Every instinct, every training memory, screamed at him to help. But as he sprinted closer, the temperature dropped drastically. The air was numbingly cold, his breath instantly frosting. He called out, but his words died, smothered by the crackling roar. The woman's face didn't turn, didn't flicker. He reached the burning vehicle, miraculously, feeling no heat, and tried to pull her away. His hand met the resistance of solid ice. Her arm, eyes still staring forward, was frozen through, unyielding as stone. The fire burned inches from her skin, but left not a single mark. Sirens approached in the distance. In a rush of adrenaline, Travis backed away, noticing something even stranger, where the fire touched the icy figure. The flames curled back, never melting a drop. As first responders arrived, the fire abruptly died, smoke rolling away to reveal nothing but untouched snow, and the outline of a woman's form on the ground etched in frost. Police reports never found remains, only an abandoned, burned-out shell, with frost on the seats and a single footprint leading off toward the woods. Travis, now shaking, recounted his version of the story. But not a single dashcam, not a single responder, found evidence of the woman in fire. Yet every winter since, when the temperature plummets and the wind howls through Spruce Pine Pass, truckers whisper that sometimes through a window or in the corner of their rear view a woman stands as flames rise. Trapped in the cold, always. Watching, never moving. Some say she's looking for warmth that will never reach her. Others warn, if you stop and try to help, you'll feel the chill. To end, you might never make it back to the next bend before night swallows your rig entirely. Story number 3. The CB Whisperer. It was a night freight job, like any other, turning midnight into a blur of headlights and highway mile markers. Rhonda had been driving big rigs for nearly a decade and thought she'd heard every kind of static, prank, and lonely ramble the Appalachian roads had to offer. But on this particular evening, as rain lashed her windshield and visibility fell to almost nothing, her CB radio began to act up in a way that would make even the toughest road veteran question what was real. The first words seemed innocent, almost familiar. "Breaker, breaker. Anyone read me?" Rhonda replied. "You got Rhonda, rolling eastbound, mile 87. Go ahead." Silence. Static. She shrugged it off, attributed it to weather and mountain interference. But then it happened again, this time with an eerie, whispered undertone. Her own name threading through the static like a chill. "Rhonda, why are you ignoring me?" She felt the hair on her arms rise. She turned the radio down, but her name kept seeping through at random intervals, each time a little clearer, a little closer. For a wild moment, it seemed like the whispers were not coming from the speakers, but from somewhere inside the cab itself, behind her seat, under the dash, curled in the darkness, just out of sight. Trying to settle her nerves, she switched off the radio completely. But the whispers didn't stop. "Rhonda, you know what you did. Turn around." Rain hammered metal and glass, and with each mile, the road narrowed. In her mirrors, odd shapes flickered, too slow for taillights, too defined for tricks of the weather. Her phone, left plugged in for GPS, abruptly lost all signal. She pulled off, shaken, at a rarely used rest stop, a naked bulb, buzzing above the lone, battered phone booth. She got out, just wanting to breathe cold air and silence. But even outside, in the pounding rain, she heard the words, as if whispered on the wind, "Don't leave me, Rhonda. I'm still waiting." She searched the empty lot. No other trucks. No sign of headlights. Nothing but the soft, insistent tap of rain on the tarmac and the whisper, now distant, echoing around the trees. Swallowing panic, she climbed back into her cab, locked the doors, and turned the CB back on. For the rest of that lonely night, she drove in silence, never answering another call. Years later, other truckers would ask Rhonda why she'd quit hauling the midnight roads through the Appalachians. She'd always say, "When the radio calls for you and you're alone, sometimes you listen. Sometimes, you never want to listen." Again, and every now and then, on some anonymous, rain-swept Appalachian route, her CB will pick up a faint, familiar whisper. "Rhonda, why are you ignoring me?" Story number 4. Hazard lights on Hollow Mountain Road. Lenny was the sort of trucker who never spooked easily. But even he respected the old warnings about Hollow Mountain Road. The route was notorious among Appalachian drivers, an ancient mining road that had been paved over, full of blind curves, and the odd feeling that, out here, you weren't ever truly alone. It was a wet, moonless night when Lenny was called in on an urgent run. His load was fragile electronics, and the dispatcher wanted him to cut through Hollow Mountain to save time. As rain hammered the windshield, Lenny noticed a faint flash of orange from out of the darkness. What struck him first was the strange silence all around. No radio chatter. No animal sounds, only the rhythmic thump of rain and the steady hum of his own engine. He rounded a tight curve, and there up ahead, in the middle of the lane, blinked a semi's hazard lights. Perfectly steady. The truck was older, battered, covered in mud and dust, as if it hadn't moved in weeks. Lenny slowed to a crawl, headlights sweeping the scene. The cab was dark, the doors shut, but something about the truck's position was off. The entire rig seemed frozen, like it had been abandoned in a hurry. Lenny rolled to a stop and called in on the CB. "Anyone need a hand on Hollow Mountain Pass? You've got a rig sitting on the WLO, nobody home." The static replied, too sharp. Clicks like someone acknowledging him. Then silence. Heart thudding, Lenny put on his raincoat and stepped out. The cold bit through his clothes as he angled his flashlight at the cab's window. The glass was fogged on the inside. Smears formed on the glasses. If someone had been frantically wiping it, trying to see out. But the driver's seat was empty. He circled the old truck. No damage, no flat tires. All the doors locked from the inside. In the beam of his flashlight, he caught movement beneath the trailer, just a slither, as if something quick had darted for cover. Lenny stumbled back, mind racing. Suddenly, his own truck's hazards started blinking. He whipped around his cab's. Interior dome light flickered to life, though he had the keys in his pocket. Just then, over his CB clear as a bell, came a single, croaking voice. Behind you, dot dot dot." Lenny spun, light trembling. A flash of movement too low, too fast to see, clearly disappeared into the tree line. As panic rose, he ran back to his cab, slammed the door, and jammed the lock. For a moment, nothing but his own harsh breathing filled the night. Then all at once, both trucks' hazards, his and the abandoned one, bag and blinking in perfect sync, lighting up the empty mountain road like a haunted runway. Lenny threw his rig in reverse and spun around, tires screeching as he tore away, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the mirror just long enough to watch the blinking lights fade behind a curtain of rain. Later, when he reported the incident, no record existed of a stalled truck on Hollow Mountain Road that night. The dispatcher double-checked the logs. No other rigs had been sent through. But even years later, truckers still claim to see those hazard lights blinking around the curve. And no one, no matter how urgent the cargo, ever stops to check them out for a second time. Story number 5. No exit between 13 and 14. Jake prided himself on being unshakable. Years of cross-country hauls had made him a master of logistics, direction, and keeping a cool head when things went wrong. He knew these Appalachian interstates by heart, their turns, their signals, even the odd places truckers avoided after dark. but nothing in his experience prepared him for the mystery that began just past exit 13. It started with what should have been a 5-minute pit stop. Jake's rig was running low on fuel, so he watched for the glowing blue signs that marked a truck-friendly exit. As he neared exit 13, the rain intensified, drumming against the windshield. He thought he saw a new sign, filling station 1. Mile exit, 13.5. He'd never heard of a 13.5 exit, but figured it must be a new addition, maybe construction. He turned on his blinker and took the ramp. The off-ramp curved deeper into the mountains than he expected, light from the interstate dissolving into blackness. The road just kept winding. After several minutes, he passed an abandoned-looking gas station, then another. Each one shuttered, faded, empty of any sign of life. His GPS spun, unable to pinpoint his location. He tried getting back to the interstate. Signage was shockingly absent. The on-ramp arrow seemed to point both ways at a fork. Jake circled, then chose a lane. He drove for what felt like 20 minutes, but never saw another car. Finally, a battered sign, now leaving exit 13.5, come again. Except as he passed, it looped back, and Jake emerged at the same entrance where he'd started, confused and now uneasy. He tried the ramp again, this time paying closer attention, but the landscape was subtly, eerily altered. Lights flickered. In windows that had been black before, a rusted playground now stood at the edge of a parking lot. Once parked for a moment, he saw blurred figures walking backward in the mist. Frustration turned to panic as he realized, every time he tried to leave, he ended up back in the same loop. The digital clock in his cab flickered. His radio offered only static. When he called dispatch, the line connected to an old-fashioned operator who kept saying, "If you've missed your exit, you can't go back." Hours passed. Jake's fuel ran low. He stopped in front of the now leaving sign and got out, desperate for help. The fog closed in, and somewhere beyond the playground came the sound of children laughing, distorted, slowed down, rising, and falling with the wind. Chilled to the bone, he ran back, started his rig. And at last, white-knuckle grip on the wheel, he gunned it straight ahead. Determined not to turn, slow down, or follow a single sign. Suddenly, the fog broke, and just like that he found himself barreling past exit 14. The real one, orange morning light, splashing across a sign he recognized. He never found exit 13.5 again, even on future runs. But other truckers began, telling similar stories about impossible ramps, endless loops, and towns that blinked in and out of existence between the official exits. On some rainy Appalachian nights, they say the signs still appear, just for a moment, only visible to those who already feel a little bit lost. Story number 6. The Woman in Orange Reflective. It was late autumn when several truckers traveling the winding roads of the Appalachian Mountains started sharing the same eerie story. One that sent chills through even the toughest drivers. It always began the same way. A mysterious figure, appearing on the roadside, standing perfectly still under the flicker of a distant street lamp. But this wasn't just any figure. It was a woman, clad in an orange reflective vest, her face half-shrouded in shadows. No one knew her name, no one saw her approach or leave, yet for 3 weeks straight, different truckers passing the same stretch of highway reported spotting her. Mike was the first to mention it. Driving through the late-night fog, he caught her standing near a narrow pull-off. His headlights caught a flash of her reflective gear. She didn't wave or call out. She simply stared, her expression unreadable. When Mike came back the next night, the woman was in the exact same spot. Then Jeremy called into the CB one evening, voice trembling, telling the story of seeing the same woman. He described the same orange vest, the way she looked like a ghost, frozen in time. He swore she never blinked. Others confirmed similar sightings, each fresh encounter adding to a chilling pattern. The woman didn't speak, didn't move, save for the occasional slow turn of her head, as if watching something invisible to everyone else. Rumors spread quickly through trucker forums and CB channels that she was the ghost of a woman who'd vanished years ago on that very stretch, her body never found. Some said the vest was hers, a giveaway for drivers to stop and help, though no help ever came. One night, a curious driver named Sarah decided to try to approach the woman. Pulling over cautiously, She stepped out into the mist. As she called out a tentative greeting, the woman simply turned away, fading gradually, as if her very form was dissolving into the fog itself. Sarah's voice shook as she told others later, "She's not here to be saved. She's waiting for someone to take her place." Since then, many truckers avoid that lonely roadside after dusk. But on nights when the fog thickens and the highway is silent except for the hum of engines, some swear they still catch a glimpse of the woman in orange, watching, waiting an eternal sentinel on the haunted roads of Appalachia. Story number 7. Appalachian Radio, the number station. Mason had been hauling cargo along backcountry routes for years, but the Appalachian night still made him uneasy. There were stretches where the radio went dead, and the world felt unnaturally quiet, like the whole mountain was listening. That's how it was the night he first heard it. He was skirting the Virginia line. The radio tuned low to fight the feeling of isolation. But as he crested a remote ridge, every commercial station faded into static except one, a frequency he'd never marked before. Instead of music or talk, a garbled voice read out a string of numbers, slow and methodical. 4412-9. 3. Mason frowned, thinking it was just some ham operator or odd interference, but the numbers kept coming, interspersed with a soft, almost weeping sound in the background. The voice, sometimes man, sometimes woman, was never the same between number sets. He tried switching channels, but every setting returned to that droning stream of numbers, as if the mountains themselves wanted him to listen. A sudden chill filled the cab even as the heater blew hot air. Then, between two sets, Mason heard a phrase in a whisper. "Look behind you." He gripped the wheel tighter, refusing to break eye contact with the road as his headlights tunneled through the fog. He checked his mirrors, nothing but black, empty tarmac. He spoke aloud, mostly to steady his nerves. "You're tired, Mace. Just some local prank on the airwaves." But then the voice began reading an odd sequence of numbers. When Mason glanced at his GPS, the coordinates displayed matched the string he was hearing. He froze, realizing that the station wasn't just spewing random numbers, it was broadcasting his exact location. The crackle shifted suddenly, and a low, pained sob distorted through the static. Mason's CB cut out entirely, replaced by the sound of frantic, hurried breathing, his own, replayed with a second's delay. Panicking, Mason tried calling out, but no one answered on any band. With adrenaline spiking, he floored the gas, desperate to get to the next lit truck stop. The static faded as he descended out of the mountains, and, mercifully, normal stations returned one by one. At the diner later, pale and shaken, Mason asked if anyone else had ever picked up a number station out here. An old-timer at the counter nodded, eyes haunted. "That signal comes and goes. Sometimes it's coordinates, sometimes it's a name. Nobody ever figures out till it's too late." From that night onward, Mason never let his radio scan channels in the dark. Others claimed they, too, heard snippets, numbers, coordinates, lost voices while driving alone through the Appalachian night. And wherever you are, if you ever find your radio locked to a frequency repeating your location, they say you should never, ever stop to listen. Story number 8. The Fog Line. Every Appalachian trucker knows there are certain stretches where the road itself seems to disappear. For Darius, it was always the fog line, a stretch near Hawk's Nest, West Virginia, where on certain misty nights, even the brightest high beams could barely penetrate the gloom. On this particular night, the highway was shrouded in a soupy, ghostly white. His headlights reflected off the fog so thick it looked almost solid, erasing lane markers and swallowing every sound except the pounding of his heart and the low rumble of the diesel engine. Most truckers would have pulled over, but Darius was behind schedule and determined to push through. The world narrowed to a tunnel of headlights, visual reference points vanishing into whiteness. Even the familiar rhythm of the road seemed off with each passing mile. He felt more isolated and adrift. Then, something changed. At first it was subtle. The painted lines along the right edge of the roadway seemed to shimmer, faintly glowing blue instead of white. He blinked, rubbed his eyes. Sure, it was fatigue. But the line grew brighter and, then, disturbingly, began to move. Not all at once, but like a living thing, writhing along the asphalt. curving in unpredictable ways. Darius white-knuckled the steering wheel as the line began to drift, luring him farther from his lane with every mile. The cab's inside temperature dropped. His phone lost signal, and the CB radio crackled softly, broadcasting not voices, but the sound of someone breathing a strained, desperate sound, exactly matching his own. His pulse pounded as he struggled to stay focused, following the movements of the fog line even as it began weaving in wild, unnatural patterns. Struggling not to panic, he checked his mirrors and, for an instant, glimpsed the shadowy outline of another truck directly behind him, its headlights flickering in and out, always keeping the same distance, yet never overtaking. Suddenly the fog line veered sharply toward the foggy shoulder, dragging Darius dangerously close to the edge. He slammed the brakes, jerking the wheel back into his lane. Instantly, the strange blue glow faded and, just like that, the lane lines returned to normal white under his headlights. He pulled over, hands shaking, and let his head fall against the steering wheel. When he finally managed to calm himself, he risked one look in the mirror. No headlights followed, no other trucks behind him. Back at the next truck stop, he told the story to anyone who would listen. Some laughed it off as fatigue, others nodded in knowing silence. A few old-timers swore they'd seen the living fog line themselves, and warned that sometimes, if you let it lead you far enough, you drive right off the road and disappear into the mist forever. Ever since that night, Darius never drives through thick Appalachian fog without a co-pilot or another truck in convoy, just in case the fog line decides to move again. Story number 9. The truck that wasn't there. For as long as he could remember, Luis had relied on his dash cam for peace of mind. Something about the steady, unblinking lens, recording every mile, made him feel just a bit safer during endless Appalachian night runs. But all the cameras in the world can't always explain what you saw, what you later realized you never actually saw. It started with a routine overnight haul to Roanoke, drifting through the empty mountain curves past midnight. The road glistened under scattered moonlight, his cab surrounded by endless woods and the occasional ribbon of mist. Then it happened. An old, battered semi with faded blue striping appeared in his mirror, headlights riding far too close, matching every turn and brake with uncanny precision. Luis's eyes darted up every few seconds. Feeling that old truck's beams burning into the back of his neck, he changed lanes twice, once to let the truck pass, once just to see if it would drop back, but each time, the reflection stayed, unwavering, never getting closer, never dropping away. Curious and uneasy, Luis adjusted his dashcam to capture the scene behind. He even made a point to flick his lights and slowed down briefly, just to signal the other driver. But the old rig only shadowed everything he did, a silent sentinel on the border of visibility. At the next way station, Luis pulled over, half expecting to see the blue-striped truck roll up behind him or park in a nearby lane. To his surprise, the lot remained empty. Not a single headlight approached, no air brakes hissed in the cold night air. Feeling a chill, he scrolled back through his dashcam recordings to see if maybe the truck had peeled off farther down the highway. But when he replayed the tape, every minute showed his own rig, the glow of the moon, the empty road, nothing else. No sign of tailing headlights, no shadow of a blue-striped semi, not even a speck of movement in the rear view. For nearly 2 hours of carefully reviewed footage, Luis drove utterly alone. At the counter inside, Luis asked a fellow driver and the weighmaster if they'd seen an older blue-striped big rig on the road that night. They exchanged uneasy glances that stretch. Folks talk about a ghost truck that never shows up on film, always tags along, real close until you try to spot it. The weighmaster nodded slowly, lowering his voice. They say it's the last run of a driver who vanished on these mountains, looking for home. But that truck, it just doesn't exist for any camera these days. Luis never felt fully alone on Appalachian highways again, always checking his mirrors and glancing at the dashcam. Sometimes, late at night, he'd sense the phantom glow of headlights, just out of sight, always there, always watching, but never ever visible unless you look away. Story number 10. The final mile. For weeks, the Appalachian trucking community buzzed with rumors about an unsolved disappearance on on a lonely stretch of highway, a story that would become legend, fueling hushed conversations at midnight rest stops and crackling across CB radios. The trucker was known only by his handle, Night Watch. A seasoned driver, he hauled sensitive cargo through the narrow mountain roads, never missing a checkpoint in over 10 years. Until, that is, his last run when his rig and logbook vanished somewhere between two forgotten towns. The tale comes to life through fragments. The last entries found in Nightwatch's digital log read as routine until the final page, when the tone changed. Still following the lights, almost th. Those who've studied the case say that's how far he typed before the entry cut off. But what makes the story more chilling are the witness accounts collected in the weeks that followed. One trucker, Sheila, claimed she saw rig matching Nightwatch's, that night tail lights distant, weaving between the fog and the tree line. She tried to radio him, only to hear her own voice come back distorted and delayed, warning her, "Keep going, this isn't for you." Others described seeing a lone rig idling at a closed mountain rest stop, its hazard lights blinking in a slow hypnotic cadence. Search teams eventually found the truck deep in the mist, abandoned on a narrow service road, not listed on any map. The cab was empty. Oddly, the engine was cold, but the radio was still on. The dispatcher's signal light glowed, even though no one was transmitting. In the passenger seat sat his logbook, and carved into the vinyl dashboard the phrase, "Only 1 mile left." Superstitions grew fast. Some drivers now refused to say the final mile aloud on Appalachian routes, worried they'll echo Nightwatch's fate. Others claim that, sometimes in the thickest fog, they spot a set of taillights weaving between the trees, always just out of reach. No matter how fast they drive, they can never catch up, to this day. Nightwatch's story lingers in the shadows of the Appalachian highways. New drivers are quietly warned not to chase mysterious lights, and veteran truckers double-check their routes before midnight. But every now and then, someone vanishes in the fog, a missing log entry, a silent radio, a mile of road wiped from memory, and the legend of the final mile grows, haunting the long dark stretches where headlights pierce the mist and only ghosts finish their journey home.